You could probably write a pretty compelling book about the tangle of competing interests, neighborhoods, families, businesses, organizations that make up politics in the Queen City, Manchester. We certainly know there would be no shortage of conflict. But the latest chapter would represent a notable shift. After electing its first woman mayor in city history, 2017, Manchester has also regained leadership of the state Senate through Senator Donna Soucy, now known around the State House as Madam President. Madam President, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning.
We appreciate it. So take us through the big items on the agenda for 2019. Democrats see this as a change election. What's going to change in the state Senate?
Well, one thing that isn't going to change is the tone. We will continue a tone of civility and respect for all members. Looking forward to working together. Our biggest policy item will certainly be the budget, and we await the governor's presentation of his budget. But there are certain priorities that we're going to have in that process. We want to look towards having some means of property tax relief. We want to focus on mental health and behavioral health and ensuring that we're meeting those needs. We're going to continue to combat the opioid crisis. For our businesses, we're really going to focus on job training because that's the #1 issue we hear, that businesses are trying to find folks that can be employed readily, that have the skill sets they need, and making sure that people have the skill sets that they need. And of course, we're going to continue to look at issues like education, the cost of health care is certainly another important issue, and something that we want to do early on is look at the issue of pre-existing conditions and ensure that we have a New Hampshire solution for that issue, regardless of what happens in Washington. An
ambitious agenda, and you have a solid majority, 14-10, but you decided to give the Republicans one committee chairmanship. Why was that?
I have worked side by side with Senator Carson for a number of years. She served as my committee chair on committees that I've served on, and she does an excellent job. I have a great deal of respect for her and her leadership, and wanted her to continue in that role.
Paid family leave, a huge issue, especially in the governor's race in the last election. We're clearly going to see that come back in some form or another, but do you anticipate a different looking piece of legislation, say a system more like what we see in other states, or are you guys going to stick with the same bill that has the voluntary system for paid family leave?
Well, the bill won't look exactly as the last version did. It will be quite similar. As you know, that piece of legislation went through 3 House committees, a Republican-dominated House, and passed 3 times to send it over to the Senate. So we do see some minor changes. You know, there are some concerns about thresholds, the number of employees, also whether there are opt-in, opt-out provisions. But basically that legislation will be one of the first things that we tackle as well.
Do you think Governor Sununu's suggestions will play a role here, since he eventually will have to sign it, that bill?
Well, we certainly want to listen to the governor. I understand he has an openness to considering this issue. I have not heard his specific concerns articulated, but look forward to having that conversation and working with him on that legislation, because as you said, eventually it'll land on his desk.
The base of your party really wants to see something done on firearms, whether that is universal background checks or red flag legislation. In your opportunity agenda, that's not something that's listed 1A or anything like that, but we know that's something people are talking about. So where does that stand on your list of priorities? Are the Democrats going to pass something related to guns this year?
There are a number of bills in the House. We have just begun filing legislation in the Senate. We'll be concluding that next week. You will likely see some version of legislation dealing with firearms. We have not specifically laid out one distinct piece of legislation, though, that's part of the agenda yet.
But how about, from your opinion, red flag, universal background checks, what is at the top of that list, I guess?
Well, there are a number of different ways that we can look at this. Last year, Senator Martha Hennessy had proposed legislation to simply allow for individual school districts to determine whether or not guns could be restricted at the local level. That's something that will probably come back, and something that certainly had a lot of support, although was unable to pass a majority of the Senate last time around.
So going for singles rather than home runs, at least on the Senate side off the bat. Redistricting, another issue for Democrats that's been big. It's a long way off, but that's already in the thought process right now. And of course, we'll have big consequences for the Senate. There are some districts in the Senate that have hyper concentrations of Democrats. I think it was at 21 that has Durham and Portsmouth together. That's something that's kind of rankled Democrats for a while now. There's going to be an independent redistricting commission bill coming out of the House. Is that something you would support?
There's going to be an independent redistricting bill likely coming out of the Senate as well. It's something that I think was talked about throughout our campaigns, certainly on the national level, is a really big issue, and we will definitely have a version that we support coming out of the Senate, and then we'll obviously reconcile the two.
So how much partisan or party influence should be involved in redrawing the map of, for instance, even the state Senate?
Well, if we were to enact an independent redistricting commission, they would come up with a recommendation. Our Constitution still requires that redistricting be done in the form of a piece of legislation. So the legislative bodies, absent a constitutional amendment, would still have to vote on that legislation.
Another House bill that's getting some attention right off the bat is legislation that would, quote, study the economic challenges of employed persons serving in the legislature. This sounds a little bit like a preamble to a request for a pay raise, which we know has a very high constitutional bar, probably a non-starter there. But should the state be taking a look at making it easier for younger and working people to serve in the Senate or House?
Well, we have a remarkable number of young people that were elected this last cycle in the House, and we've had various shifts. As you know, New Hampshire has a volunteer legislature. We're paid $100 a year, compensated for mileage. I think there are two ways to approach it. One certainly could be to look at compensation, although that would require a vote of at the election to amend the Constitution. The other thing to look at is to try to find ways to make service in the legislature more convenient, doing things in the evening, doing things on the weekend, not just during the day. I mean, there are ways of accommodating the schedule to accommodate more young people, more working people to serve in the legislature.
And I think as Senate President, you're going to be getting a big bonus of an added $50, right? Is that the
$25 a year for a total of $50? Yes,
it's very impressive. But speaking of finances, do you anticipate this ambitious agenda going into the rainy day fund at all? There's a lot that Democrats want to do. Do you think the rainy day fund is going to stay intact, or do you need that money to pay for what you want to do?
I don't think that's been determined yet. As I said, we await the presentation of the governor's budget. The House will get a crack at it as well, and then we'll try to reconcile that. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think we'll certainly look at the levels. We have had a lot of money put into the rainy day fund because I think revenue estimates were lowballed to an extent, so we've certainly exceeded those considerably. It certainly will be part of the mix, but there's no anticipated immediate extraction of money from the rainy day fund at this time.
So rewinding a little bit here, your father, C. Arthur Soucy, was a major figure in the New Hampshire Democratic Party and in politics here in Manchester. What are some of the leadership lessons you take from him that you'll be applying in your leadership of the state Senate?
Well, I talked about both my parents when I was elected Senate President because they had a profound influence on me. One of the things that my dad always did, regardless of whatever office he held or party involvement, was truly be engaged in the community and always try to help those around you when they're in need, and most importantly that your word is your bond. Don't give it unless you mean it, and once you give it you can't take it back.
And you were Senate Chief of Staff in the last decade, right? How does that perspective help you heading into this job right now?
It helped a lot, certainly in the early stages, having to make decisions about committee assignments, staffing. I knew what I was getting into and was prepared to begin to set the agenda for not only policy, but as I said, hiring and putting together a team that can work on the issues and problems that are facing the people of the state of New Hampshire.
And of course, in 2019, we're going to start to see a lot of national level Democrats coming into the state. Unfortunately, the state Senate and the House won't be the only game in town. There'll be another first in the nation process going on. Your endorsement will obviously be a coveted one, and you're going to hold on to that, I'm sure, for as long as possible. You can't really tip your hand, but can you tell us a little bit about the kind of candidate you would like to see emerging to lead Democrats in 2020?
Well, I think the beauty of the New Hampshire primary is it's open, and it's a place where I think candidates come with certain ideas, with policies, with a certain sense of how they want to govern, and really connecting with the people of New Hampshire, I think, makes people better candidates. And we've heard that from candidates of both parties, whether it was Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or George Bush or John McCain. I think New Hampshire is a very unique place where the candidates have a real opportunity to learn more about issues, but also to learn how to better connect with people. Because once they leave the New Hampshire primary, there are very few opportunities for them to do much more than big arena tours and tarmacs. So,
and certainly we could see so many of these candidates coming in. It's going to be every New Hampshire voter is going to have a lot of power because there are going to be so many candidates. There are going to be really a lot of people asking for votes. Who's reached out to you so far? Do you mind sharing some of the names?
A number of candidates. Congressman Swalwell has been in the state. He's going to be here today. I've heard from Senator Booker, Congressman Tim Ryan, who went to law school with me here in New Hampshire. Certainly Senator Warren, Senator Book. There have been a number of candidates that have reached out and are looking forward to visiting the Granite State and connecting with not only members of the state Senate, but certainly with the voters.
All right. Senate President Donna Soucy, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you in a couple months.